All right, everybody. We are live, or at least attempting to go live. I think we're live. So we're gonna see. We had a little bit of an intro. We were just trying out all the systems, but we're pretty much going live now. And basically, this will be recorded. We'll post it up on our channels if there's any kind of issues that are going on. I'm just checking to make sure we are popping live everywhere, which I'm not seeing that we are. Hmm. Dun, dun, dun. Here we are. We are live. We're totally live. All right. All right, everybody. So, as promised, we are starting. Mary and I are going to be trying to basically try to get it every Friday or every other Friday. We'll get a good schedule going where we're just basically going to be building. So, Mary and I are Mario and I are builders, and we just build stuff all the time. Yeah, I know the names are going to be fantastic. It's the jersey with the Mario. That's going to be great. It's okay. Mario calls me Nino, so we're at the same time. Um,
Nuno, not Nino.
Nuno. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're a two of our favorite softwares, right? As of now, obviously, as you all know, is High Level. NAN is another software that we use that is basically, I like your kind of description of it. It's like the very high level graduate version of like third-party connector software. And all that means is if you had two softwares that have to talk to each other and you wanted to automate things, NAN is the one that does it. There's tools like Zapier, Make, NAN, and the way I think you described it was perfect. It was like you start off with Zapier because it's really easy to work. Then you move over to Make, it gets a little bit more complicated. Then you move over to NAN, which happens to be the most complex, but the most powerful, at least in our opinion. And with that being said, if the goal of what we're trying to do today is actually show you guys how to basically connect both softwares and make it a real powerhouse solution to whatever you got going on. So we're pretty much live anywhere. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. If you guys have any comments or anything or asking questions, feel free to chat with whatever you got going on, whatever channel you're viewing this on, and we'll be more than happy to answer anything that comes along our way, right? So I'll be monitoring the chats as you guys are rolling through and having questions. And Mario's pretty much going to go over, because he is the NA expert, of basically how to create this. So Mario, I think today, right, what we're going to be doing, at least to start off, is showing everybody how to connect NAN to high level. For anybody that doesn't know what NAN is, go to my YouTube channel, go to Mario's YouTube channel. We have videos out of not only how to build it and connect it, but how to basically start operating it. But today we're going to focusly main on that. So if you have questions, please type them into the chat as you go through. And hey, Philip, how are you? And we'll be able to answer any questions as we're kind of building this out. And again, enjoy. And yeah, Mario, I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll rock and roll.
Well, man, thank you. What's up, Nuno? Uh,
I know we're just gonna do that for fun now.
I know, right? All right. If you're not familiar with High Level and you're just watching this, High Level is an automations and business operations system that focuses on helping small to medium-sized businesses with marketing, with basically everything you need to run your business. It takes payments, it books meetings, it's got AI features, manages your contacts and your leads, and so much more. I mean, I could literally sit here for an hour with Nuno and discuss probably the 1,000 features that High Level has, right? But the second platform we're going to talk about today, like Nuno was saying, is the N8N platform. So a lot of you are probably more familiar with Zapier and Make. The problem with Zapier and Make is one, a lack of flexibility. They're very rigid platforms in escalation or in descending order, I suppose you should say. So you have Zapier, which is, like he was saying earlier, really the easy kind of bread and butter of automations. It's also the most expensive of the automations platforms. And the reason it's the most expensive is because it's so well designed to and crafted for users that really aren't familiar with building complex automations or connecting APIs. They have the largest app marketplace. They've invested a lot of money in making it available for the average Joe or Jane to connect two applications together, right? So Zapier is what you start with typically. And then make.com is a little bit above that in terms of complexity, but it's also lower in price. So it's, what would you say, Nuno? It's about maybe a fifth of the price.
I would say it's probably, yeah, it's about a fifth of the price. But the way to think about it is again, simplify it even a little bit further for people that are trying to get out there. If Mario and I, right, we spoke two different languages. He spoke Chinese and I spoke, let's say, English for instance, right? And I needed to communicate with Mario on all kinds of different things. I need something to match words to ensure that, dog means dog and cat means cat and go means go and everything else. Well, if you take that and you put it into different translators, right? Think of Zapier like super easy. Anybody and their mom can use it, but it's super, super expensive because it's so like again to what he was saying, it's so well done that you're paying for the extra connectivity and the ease of use.
Right.
Make is like, all right, it's in your ear, it's sort of giving you hints, but it's not giving you anything. You still have to go in there and design and kind of connect everything and make it a little bit easier. It is cheap and it works out pretty well. And now the difference between Make, and it was actually one of the questions that came through in the chat, was if Make has all these things, why use NAN? NAN introduces Agentic agents and now also has an MCP server. It gives you more powerful abilities than the other ones. But this one, if you took it like on that kind of translation, like if we were using like a translator, this one requires a lot more of us doing things and figuring things out, and it's a lot more technical. But it gives us the ability of like, let's say even having an agent taking over everything. And we're going to show you the example we're going to show you today if we're successful. We're basically going to auto create a blog inside of High Level using an agent that we're going to build inside of NAN, meaning an AI agent of sorts. But that's the kind of way, and then the cost goes up, right? So I'm sorry, the cost goes down. Zapier the most expensive because it has the most and the easiest to use. Make is second to that, and then NAN because you can host your own version of it, which is what Mario has here. And by the way, for people that don't know, in the video that we showed prior, Mario has a service that he does this for people. And on top of that, we went over it a little bit in the last previous video, and there's a video on my YouTube and how I even show you how to do it. So when you create your self-hosting, it's unlimited execution, right? So aren't you running like 1 million executions in here at like very minimal cost and everything?
Per day. You can even run NAN on your local computer, which is pretty cool because you can do like spreadsheet automations with like Microsoft Excel and a bunch of other things. It's really designed to be the most flexible of the platforms, but like Nuno said, it's probably, a little bit more technical. There are still a lot of apps in NAN, so why don't, without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do in Go High Level is we are going to create a blog. So that's the first step, right? Because like Nuno said, our goal today is going to be to basically use an AI to write a blog post for us and then automatically post it into High Level. And then we are going to do some other cool things using AI agents. I'll show you how to create a chatbot, whatever we have time for today. But the first step is we need to create a blog. So we're going to go into sites and we're going to go into blogs. And I don't have a blog, as you can see here. So let me grab a link address or something. And what I'm going to do is create that blog site. And I'm going to name this Alibot.ai because that is the name of my agency and my consulting business. I'm going to put it at the Slug blog. And I'm going to type in a meta description. This blog is about the AI world and everything you need to know. We cover topics like ChatGPT AI agents, and whoop, and down. There we go. All right, there is a character limit, so make sure you stay in less than 100 characters. So we're going to create that blog site. It's going to take a second here. And while we're doing that, now that we've created this blog site, we need to maybe add, we can edit the blog site. We can import blogs posts from a URL. We have some blog settings to configure. So make sure that when you do go build out your blog that you go through and just make sure everything is working properly. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a form. So I'm going to go into Forms Builder. And the reason we're creating a form is we need to submit that blog to the AI agent. And the best way to do that is using an automation out of High Level using what's called a webhook. So think of a webhook like every time you type in a URL in your browser, you're making what's called a GET request. So you're asking the internet and you're asking the server for information. It's returning it to your browser. A webhook is essentially the opposite of that, kind of. It can go in either direction, but basically a webhook in this context is going to fire out some block of information out to N8N. N8N is going to in turn process that information, and then it's going to send it back into High Level. So
Yeah, while he keeps building this, I'll tell you the best way that I've always learned these, and it took me a little while to understand what a webhook is. Think of it as like a data bus, meaning a physical bus like you drive to school, like kind of thing, like where it has a bunch of information inside. And that bus will go from one software to another software. And if it has to return the kids back, it will go from the other software back to the original software that sent the request. And again, just thinking of it as a very secure way of sending information back and forth in one big data pellet slash bus slash whatever, but it's a big container that sends a bunch of information over from one to the other. And it goes back and forth. And this get and post is get means literally this. I need to go get the information. A post is I'm actually posting the information. So meaning I'm posting it somewhere, and the get is I'm trying to retrieve it back. So very fancy words, but that's what these things mean. And like I said, it took me a little while to kind of understand the concept of it. So don't feel like overwhelmed if all of a sudden, oh, like I don't get what you're saying and everything else. But just understand it's the way that information moves back and forth between two softwares. That's all.
perfect. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going in this form is we're going to create a blog title example. Now, this blog title example is not exactly what the blog is going to be titled necessarily. It is more so a reference for the content that you are creating. So let's go ahead and reference title example. You're going to save this. And we are going to go ahead and add that field. So now we have that blog post title example. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add another field, and this one's going to be a multi-line field. So if you're not familiar with High Level, you have single line, multi-line. Single line is for like titles and short descriptions. Multi-line is a big text box where you can put more information in it. So we're going to call this blog description example. Please describe what you want the blog to be about. We're going to save this. We're going to put this in a contact group. We're going to drop this into the, we got our blog description. We're going to make both of these required. And what we've done is you do have to have an email up here. That is just going to key it to your user. It is going to update your most recent. It is going to update these as custom fields, but don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's not like, your customers are going to be submitting this, right? But this is something where if you do guest content or guest blogging, if you shortcut and rewire some of the things we're going to show you today, this would be actually a pretty good use case for being able to have guest bloggers come in
Absolutely.
and submit a guest blog.
Yeah, and the other
Um,
thing is, remember, you're also with NAN, you wouldn't only be limited to you. Like, let's make believe you wanted to post it on your blog post in High Level, and make believe you had another blog post in WordPress. You can post it in both with one fell swoop, as you can kind of see. But again, we're not going to go over that today. But we just want to give you like a quick little example of like some of the powerhouse of these two combinations of softwares of what it can possibly do. And again, this is a little bit more of a complex build. This is not the, you wouldn't start here. This is something you graduate to over time once you start understanding how both work. But we're trying to give you guys the cheat sheet on something that we find useful, especially blogging with AEO now and everything else. This is something you definitely want to get into and automate.
Absolutely. So we've got our blog. I just used the preview link. You can always bookmark this preview link, which makes it super easy to save so you can use it later. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into High Level, and we're going to start. There's a couple pieces and we're going to flip back and forth. But what we need to do is we need to create a workflow. So I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to call this N8N Automate Your Agency. We're going to create that folder, and inside that folder, we're going to create a workflow. And what we want to do, and I'm going to show you some, best practices and examples for creating workflows. But one of the things that we want to do in creating this workflow is we want to lock it to our user email. So we don't want someone who by happenstance, stumbles on the form, which is next to near impossible, but hey, you never know. We don't want other people to be able to submit blogs because this is automatically going to generate that content and shoot it into High Level. So we're going to start from scratch. What we're going to do inside of this workflow is we are going to put a trigger, and that trigger is going to be called form submitted. One of the things that we don't want to have happen is every form submission fire a new blog post. So what we want to do is we want to say form is submit a blog to High Level. This is a critical step, guys. So if you're building out this automation, make sure that you put a filter on it and select the form we just created. So I'm going to put in my title of my trigger name, and I'm going to go ahead and save that trigger. All right, and then I am obsessed with saving workflows. I can't tell you how many times this was especially bad when I was on a Mac, that I would swipe left or right on my trackpad, and I just literally lost all of my work. So basically, like, there's no autosave feature on workflows. So just make sure you're saving it on a regular basis as you kind of go through the progress. But this workflow is actually going to be insanely simple. I'm going to call this N8N create blog post High Level. I am also meticulous in my naming. I'm particular about naming
I like
because
numbering. I think that's the one thing you and I do a little different. I number everything. I'll
yeah,
put like N01 dot and then go in there. Only reason is for anybody that builds automations, I'm big on understanding which was the first step in the automation and then which is the second, which is the third, which is the fourth. So I usually tend to number ours, but no matter what, I'm with Mario on this. You definitely want to make sure you put things in folders, then go back in and name it. And if you're just beginning, literally name it exactly what it's going to do. Like again, the name is perfect. Create blog post on whatever. So when you guys are building these out, make it super easy for you guys in order for you to do that. Like that just doesn't get confusing. And then if you're like, well, why didn't it post? Maybe it's because my automation's not working. And if I have my automations named weird, I won't know where to go to fix it. So just make sure that, again, very big on doing this, that you want to make sure you roll with that and you understand it.
yep. So the first step is, like I was saying earlier, after adding the trigger, we want to make sure that nobody else can submit a blog post, right? So we are going to go ahead and save this action. And I filtered down on the Mario@Olibot.ai email address. And the next thing I'm going to need to do is create an action. And that action is actually going to be a webhook. So the webhook's going to go out of high level into N8N. So right now, this is a pausing point because we don't have the webhook address yet, right? We need to get a webhook address in order to fire it into N8N because N8N needs to basically say where the high level is going to call with that information. So think of it like a telephone call, right? Or a data bus, as Nuno described it. So I've got my N8N instance open. This is what it's going to look like when you sign in. If you have nothing in your N8N and you're following along, that's okay. Really good news, though, in N8N is if you go into this templates, I'm just going to show you something really quick. If you go to templates, there is a huge community repository of templates. There's over almost 2,000 templates.
Yeah.
2,000 templates that are available. I publish to this. Nuno, I'm assuming, publishes to this. I know a lot of people are big into publishing to the N8N repository. It's an amazing community. So if you want to get started, you have questions, Google it, ask ChatGPT, come to the community, ask me, ask Nuno. But there's tons of support for N8N. So we're going to create that first workflow, and we're going to name this workflow high level N8N generate blog, high level post blog. So just like what Nuno was saying earlier, form, just like he was saying earlier about, naming things, all of my N8N scenarios are very easily named. I agree with Nuno that you should absolutely number them for the purposes of this demo. I'm not going to go ahead I'm not going to get into, snapshot and workflow management and all that stuff, but that's a totally separate class that I think we should definitely run through. So I named it high level form N8N generate blog, high level blog post. So it does exactly that. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add a webhook node. So we're going to add that webhook node and we are going to select post. So this is not posting out of N8N yet. This is what N8N is expecting to receive. When I first started an N8N, this was a huge sticking point for me. I would constantly forget to select the appropriate method. It's always going to be post in the case of N8N receiving something.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. This one really threw me, right? Because remember that bus analogy, and the way to think about it is, yeah, this really screwed me up for like going on 3 months. So the way to think of the way I finally broke my brain to understand it is, it's expecting the post versus like because we're posting it to it, so it's expecting. So that's the method it's expecting to receive, and that's what that's why it's using it. But normally it would be you would post out, but in this case, this is what it's expecting. So when building an NAN for this particular part, just think of it that way. It's what it is expecting in order for it to be received.
Awesome. So I am going to grab this test webhook and I am going to go back into here and save this. And I'm going to call this webhook to N8N. So you see here, our method is post. In N8N, our method is post. And we are ready to rock. So I'm going to save this action, save this, and I'm actually going to go ahead and publish this workflow. Okay. And the reason that I'm publishing this workflow is because N8N has this amazing feature called listen for test event. And when you're listening for a test event, it will fire whatever is connected in the N8N scenario. But as you can see, I don't have anything connected to the webhook yet. So it is just going to fire the webhook. And I'll show you what you're going to do with that data. So it will not work unless you say test workflow. This also threw me for a loop. I thought that you could just send data to it and it would receive it. It doesn't. It will error out. So if you get an error message, like a 404 error, for example, or a 500 error, this is why. It's because you haven't hit test trigger event yet. So you can see now here it's blinking the little circle, and I have my test workflow, and I'm going to go in here to my form. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my email address because it is keyed to my email address. And I'm going to call this setting up N8N for beginners. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a really simple description. And to do that, I'm going to use ChatGPT. So I'm going to say, write me a description for a blog post that details how to set up N8N for beginners using DigitalOcean and Docker. I want this blog post to be 1,000 words or so. This should be in the description, as this is a prompt for another AI. Also, make sure to return the prompt in Markdown format. All right, so I just told ChatGPT to write me a prompt, and I told it to write the prompt in what's called Markdown. So Markdown is a form of formatting that is
I would say like almost computer language. It's the better way that computers understand where things need to go. And it's believe it or not, if you actually communicate with AI, with JSON or with this kind of markdown, it understands it better. It's just the way computers talk to each other and the way programs talk to each other. It's just a better language for the system. And again, you don't have to know it. You could just put it into like a Chat GPT, Claude, whatever you're using, Gemini, and it will do this for you.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is now take that prompt and I'm going to go back into my form and paste that prompt and say create blog post. Now, if everything works properly, which I waited too long because I was describing it, what I'm going to do is just go Mario at olibot.ai and rerun this and send that test. It should fire. So, all right, perfect. It fired. So we received the data in N8N. This is called JSON. JSON, like Markdown, is another format of text and data. It's a more structured format, and it's what you're going to use for basically all API calls or webhook calls. Everything on the internet communicates in JSON in terms of passing data back and forth. Even HTML is embedded in JSON in most cases. Like basically everything that you do is a JSON, what's called a JSON payload, JSON. So what we're going to do in the top right corner is you have this little pin icon. This is a really important icon for you guys to pay attention to. Again, in the top right corner of my screen where it says pin data, what we're going to do is we're going to pin this data. And by pinning this data, it means that I can re-hit test workflow over and over and over again. And it's not going to wait for another webhook call because I don't want to have to keep resubmitting that form over and over and over again. This also means that you can do a lot more in your development environment, which is N8N, without impacting production. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to add in, and this is, guys, where it starts to get really fun. So make sure and pay attention. I'm going to add in ChatGPT. So you search OpenAI. We've got a bunch of different options. These are actions, right? So we have triggers, which are the webhook. That can be a manual start. That can be another app. We have a trigger, something like, in high level, how we have a trigger up here of form submitted. We have a trigger over here of webhook fired. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a model. So I want to message a model. And what I want to message that model is that prompt. There we go. So I'm going to drag that variable from the left-hand side. This left pane is my input pane. The right pane is my output pane. And I'm going to drag that blog description right in here to this prompt area, right? And I'm going to use user as the, or system as the identifier. And you can also use user. So system is designed for setting context and behavior. Assistant sets personality and tone, and user actually sends the message to the to ChatGPT. So I'm going to add another message, and I'm going to do assistant. I want this blog post to be written at an 8th grade level, and it should be lighthearted and make jokes occasionally. You can use emojis if available. Return the blog post in HTML with proper headings and other formatting.
So I'm going to throw two caveats in there to make this a little bit more advanced for the advanced users out there. Can we say please add markup schema also on there?
Yeah.
And if we have the ability, ChatGPT just released the O3 model. I've been playing with it all week long. It is absolutely amazing. But mind you, we chose OpenAI because it's the easiest one to connect. Also understand that inside of here, you're able to use Gemini and Claude. So if you have a preferenced like AI model you like to use, you're not limited to this. All right. We're using this because it's the easiest one. And then when you get a chance to select the model, Mario, if we have O3, let's try to shoot for O3 just for this sample. Don't know, we might
Yeah.
not. It's brand new. Go on. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, I have access. I have access to all the models, man.
Of course you do.
So what we're going to do is we are going to say return the blog post in markup schema. Actually, I'm going to put this in the another system prompt. So I'm going to add another prompt and put this in the system prompt. And what I'm actually going to do is move this because I'm pretty particular as well about my prompting styles and things like that.
Sure.
So I just make sure that the system prompts are usually set earlier on in the description to give the model the full context of what it's doing. Right. Then I'm going to message as an assistant. And the next thing I'm going to do is message as a user. Please write a blog post for N8N, setting up N8N for beginners. And I'm going to say in my system prompt, also return the blog post SEO title, description, and keywords clearly delineated by JSON formatting. The JSON should contain title, description, string. So there are different data types, and we're getting a little bit advanced here, but just follow along. It will make sense as we go through. Keywords, object, body, object, or string, and markdown. Escape properly. And I told it to escape it properly. So escaping means adding special character backslashes in certain places so that the JSON is a valid payload, meaning that the JSON is able to be properly interpreted by N8N or another computer system that reads JSON. So I'm going to say the JSON should contain the format should be, and Actually, let's see what we do without format. We'll just do it this way.
Yeah, and the
So
reason
I've
why we're doing this, guys, is because a lot of people are creating blogs. If you're just creating a blog to create a blog, it's not really going to have the impact you want it to. Nowadays, with search engine optimization, searching for different things, the schema, markdown, keywords, SEO, descriptions, titles, all that stuff matters, and that's what we're trying to include. So you're not only just creating a blog, you're creating a blog that can be searched. Now, the whole schema thing that I kind of added is AEO, which is like how AI searches for articles is based on schema, and that's why we're also trying to add the schema. Now, this might completely flop, and we might have to go back and rechange things. But what Mario's showing you is like computer like kind of terms and language that the computer needs to understand in the AI to get the best results possible. And I love the way you did the system, the user, and the prompt. So that's pretty awesome.
Yep. So we've got our everything set up. And one of the cool things, guys, is you can in your system prompt, as opposed to doing what I did, where I actually specified what I want the topic to be about, you can actually write a generic prompt for creating a blog post and just feed it a title and description. So you have some different options there depending on how you want to set it up. But I'm going to call this OpenAI generate blog post. All right. And then I am going to hit test step. And what it's going to do is it's going to go call OpenAI. So right now, that little spinny wheel where it says executing node is it's talking to OpenAI. Now, not all OpenAI prompts accept or OpenAI models accept the same things. So keep that in mind. If it errors out, generally speaking, just try and change the model, especially prevalent with O3 and O1 models or O models in general. Sometimes they're not very friendly when it comes to different things like system user assistant or tool calls, for example. And we'll get into tools a little bit later. But now we've got it writing that blog post. So we're just going to give it a minute to write that blog post.
Now, just to kind of save up on time, because we're at the 30-minute mark. Oh, never mind. Never mind. As it popped out.
Perfect. All right. So we've got our JSON output, which is the body, the keywords, the description, and the title, exactly like I told it to do. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this data so it doesn't rerun this again. And at each step, as you're building out a workflow, you want to pin the data at each step. And then wherever it fails, you go all the way back to that step and unpin the data to that step and everything forward. And then you leave everything before it pinned. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I need to format this blog post. So let's look really quick at this is highlevel.stoplight.io. Again, that's highlevel.stoplight.io. And that is where you can find what's called the API, Application Programming Interface documentation for High Level. So these are all of the different things you can do in High Level. Generally speaking, like Nuno said, a GET request is asking for something, a POST request is saying something. Now, that doesn't always apply. There are some edge case scenarios where that's not entirely accurate. So you do have to use your judgment and read the documentation to make sure that you don't either accidentally overwrite an entire sub account, you don't accidentally try and send data to an endpoint that's designed to retrieve data. There's all kinds of stuff that you need to be cognizant of when you are using an API. Always read, measure twice, cut once. So
The
what
other
we're going
to note, APIs is a little bit, remember that difficulty like kind of scale I was telling you about? APIs is kind of up there, right? So if you're kind of confused on this part and you never built an API before, you have so much incredible AI now. You give AI like the schema or a kind of like what we're talking about right now, and literally what I've done in the past to learn something, I put it in there and I say, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old because I have no idea what you're saying. And then that's what it will do, and it will help you out. And if as long as it has the information, and I sometimes I literally just copy and paste please explain to me what this means. I copy and paste it. Then I go back, I read it again. If I don't understand it, then I go back, copy and paste. So there's a lot of very easy, different ways to make you learn this. So don't feel compelled like, oh, I can't get this. Oh my God, this is too hard. Don't give up. Just kind of go back, and this is how you play with it.
I mean, to put it in kind of easy to understand terms, you're speaking two different languages. This is literally like Nuno speaks French or Chinese, and like he was saying earlier, and I speak English or the other way around, and we now have to talk to each other, right? So each application speaks its own language. So there's like billions of languages on the internet that you have to learn to understand. You're never going to master the languages. You need to master understanding how to translate the basic core principles of translating the language, and that's it. So I'm a huge proponent of documentation. I document everything, and I read whenever I'm working on projects like this. So I'm going to go down to the blogs section of the API. And what I'm going to do is look through this, and this is called what it's expecting from a body standpoint. Okay, so I've got different things. I've got categories. I've got alt text. I've got status, raw HTML. This is an important one. So, okay, so what this means is it accepts raw HTML. So I now know that I need to put HTML in the blog post so that it knows what information it needs to be putting out there and what language it's going to put it out there. This is an example of the blog post, what's called a curl request, which is a way to use a command URL interface. And this is for like a terminal or shell, which you guys aren't going to be doing. But what's important is this data piece right here. This is the JSON payload that you need to copy to put in to post your blog. So whenever I build scenarios, I usually start with the beginning, and I map everything out logically on a diagram. We're building this live, which is why we're calling it Vibe Fridays, right? Because we're just vibing. If you're familiar with the term vibe coding, same principle. So I'm going to copy that payload, and I'm going to add an HTTP node. So this HTTP node is just like calling a webhook, and it needs to be a post request because, again, high level is posting the data to N8N. N8N is going to post the data back to high level. So I need to hit send body and put in expression or put in JSON, switch this to what's called expression. Expression means that it accepts variables, okay? Just remember, you need to use expression at this part, and it accepts variables. That's really what your takeaway from it. So we're going to swap out all of these areas right here with the JSON data that we received, the output of the JSON data we received from high level. And we're going to name this send blog to high level. All right, the next thing we need is the URL where we're sending it. So we're going to go to Stoplight. We're going to grab that URL. We're going to go back in here and paste that URL here. Now, what you need is to authenticate yourself, right? Because you don't want anyone who is posting you don't want anyone to be able to post to your blog without your permission, right? So High Level's put in what's called an API key. And an API key allows you to say, and it's private to you to say, hey, I am authorized to post this information. Please post it on my behalf. So we need to grab an API key. And where do we find that? We find that in High Level. So we're going to go back into High Level. We're done with that.
Now I want to stress, this is by far one of the most important parts. And like, you have to understand that, like, just please understand, like, out of all the things we're going to show you, like everything that we've shown you so far is a little bit complicated, but if you don't do this one step right, this will nothing's going to work. So pause whatever you're doing. If you guys are drinking some coffee, drink another gulp right now, but pay attention to this one particular part because this is critical. Also note that because we are live, we are going to rotate this key. So any of the weirdos out there that want to like try to hack or whatever else, You're not going to be able to. We're literally going to get rid of it in like minutes after this. So just be aware. We're also seeing that for YouTube. So YouTube, please don't take us down. So because they will take you down if they see an API key. Just want to make sure, pay attention. This is the most critical part. And no, you cannot steal our key.
Yes, exactly. And also make sure, guys, you know, to Nuno's point earlier or a moment ago about API keys, do not give anyone your API key. Okay, that is the keys to the castle. And you giving someone your API key, especially if you use it for like your agency API key, for example, or things like that, it's bad news to give your people your API key. It's also very bad news to loom a video with your API key in it, or do exactly what we're about to do, which I'm going to pause my screen share while I put in the API key. But it's bad news to accidentally publicly post on YouTube your API key. There are people that literally just scrape YouTube for API keys so they can hack your stuff. It's the easiest way nowadays to get hacked is by accidentally publishing a password, email combo, or an API key. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new integration. And we're going to name this integration N8N blog post.
And remember, we went to settings. From settings, we went to private integrations inside the sub account of high level.
Yep. And it's inside the sub account, like he said. Make sure you're inside the sub account, not the agency level. The agency level is only if you're on the 497 plan, and it's also only for creating locations and location management. So we're going to hit next, and we're going to select some scopes. Scopes are permissions. So think about it like I am asking when I have a key, and I want to make sure that my key only works for certain locks, right? Not only do I want to make sure that it only works for certain doors, but I want to make sure that it only works for certain locks on that door or features of that entry point, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search blog, and I'm going to do create blog post, okay? Now, this is the only scope I'm going to give it at the moment, and I'm going to hit create. I'm going to pause my screen share for a second, and I'm going to hit create. I'm going to copy that token. Now, I recommend platforms like 1Password or something like that to securely store your credentials. Because you can only view an API key one time on almost every platform on the market. So you only get one chance to write down that API key. Don't write it down on a piece of paper. Don't store it in a text file. Don't put it in a Google Doc. Get a password manager, and don't be cheap. It's like $4 a month. I recommend 1Password. Little tidbit for everyone. It will save your bacon on so many different things, especially having to remember API keys. All right. So I'm going to unpause my screen share. And now you can see that that API key has some stars in it. This is not a, if I copied this, it wouldn't work because these stars are real characters behind it, but you can't see that information. The good news is you can rotate and expire the token if you accidentally give it to someone or accidentally publish it. You can also rotate and expire it later. That means it rotates and expires after 7 days, which gives a developer 7 days to update the API key in their systems. I'm a big fan of rotate and expire this token now. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into the high-level form workflow, and we are going to select authentication, and we need to look at the API documentation and see what kind of authentication it needs. So it needs a header token, and that's called authorization bearer token. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and go to generic credential type. We're going to go down here. There is a high-level credential type inside of N8N. That is for OAuth, which is from the marketplace. That's a whole other animal. We're not going to deal with OAuth today. So we're going to do bearer auth, and we're going to try this one. We have a bunch of different options. As you can see, I have different things in here. I'm going to go ahead and paste in that API key, and I'm going to call this Alibot AI blog poster. And I'm going to save this API key as a credential inside of NAN, a generic credential. Again, this is a private integration token, not OAuth. So don't worry about the OAuth. Use a private integration token. And we're going to save this. I don't need to update my password. I'm going to close this. And now I've set my security credentials. So you see how I did that? I paused my screen share. You couldn't see it. We're all gravy. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look back here and I'm going to say, what does it need? Oh, it needs a header. So I'm going to grab this version ID and I am going to put this in the header in N8N. So I'm going to say send headers and I want to call this version and paste this key or paste this value. The version is the version of the API in high level. This is also a common sticking point for people that forget to put it in there. You absolutely need the version. The version is different on certain API calls. So make sure that you are using the right version, which is found in the API documentation.
And just what that means is if you were using, like, let's say the calendar one, it would have like, it possibly might have a different version. If you're using like update a snapshot one, it would have a different version. So just keep that in mind. That's what he means by like the different calls and everything else.
Exactly. The next thing we're going to do is we need to copy some JSON content into our blog post. But gosh dang it, there's a problem. I need categories and my formatting is in Markdown, not HTML. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this node a little bit. We're going to go back into high level, go into our blog. The first thing we need is that category. So I've got my blog right here. I need to look at what categories are available. So that is that is not in here. That is in creating a blog. Does it not let you create categories?
You have to be in it. Yeah, I think you have to hit the three little dots on the right-hand side. No, those are kind of close. Go to settings, maybe.
No, it's not in settings. I just checked it.
Yeah, I guess maybe you create it and then you create the categories in the blog. Thanks.
Interesting. Let me just make sure it's not in these three dots. Nope. Nope. Categories. It's in settings of the
other settings.
So I'm going to call this N8N. We're going to call this tutorials. And that's my slug is going to be tutorials. If I can spell right. And I don't need a description at the moment. I just need a title and a slug, and I'm going to create this category. So I've got my category now created. But oh no, the problem is I don't get to see the category's information. So what do I need to do? I need to ask N8N to find the category IDs for me. So I'm going to go back into settings. I'm going to go back into private integrations. I'm going to click on my blog poster or I'm going to edit my blog poster API key. I'm going to hit next and I'm going to say categories. View blog categories. Perfect. All right, I'm going to update this. Now, what I've done is I've given that key additional permissions to be able to view categories. So the next thing I need to do is I need to go back into N8N and I need to add another API call. So I'm going to add another HTTP node. And realistically, in this case, the easiest way to do it is simply to clone by copy and paste. We're going to delete this connection, go here like this, go like this, and connect them up together. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change this, get categories from blog. We need to change this to go to get all categories. So we're going to copy this. It's a get request, meaning we're calling and asking for information from high level. So we're changing this to a get request, adding that, and then it doesn't need a body associated with it. Typically speaking, when you're getting some sort of data, you're going to need query parameters or header parameters, or a direct URL, you're not going to need a body associated with that. So what we're going to do is the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit test step, and it says unprocessable entity could not be processed by the service at execute content. Let's find out why. So let me go back into get all categories, get authorization, bearer tokens. Oh, look, it needs a limit, a location ID, and an offset. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go back into Olibot, copy my location ID. For those of you that didn't know, your location ID is actually part of the URL string in your browser window. So I'm going to grab that that location ID, go back into N8N, add some query parameters. I'm going to call this location ID, put in my value. I'm going to go back in here. I need limit and offset. So I'm going to add in limit, and I'm going to add in offset. Now, I know what these values need to be, but normally speaking, this is where reading the API documentation comes into play. So make sure and read your API documentation, all right? So I put in limit, offset, and location ID. Now let's try and see what happens. It gave me my categories back. Woohoo! All right. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to grab this category ID, and I'm actually going to remove this node from here and just use this in the event I need to get my category IDs. I'm going to copy this right here. I am going to go like this, and I'm going to put in my category ID right here. I'm going to take the comma out of the example and only put in one category. If you need more than one category, you add a comma, put in quotation marks, add another category ID. Commas are probably the biggest pain in the behind when it comes to JSON formatting. It will not work because of one extra or one missing comma. There are things called JSON pretty printers and JSON formatters. Just Google it, JSON formatter, and you will paste the JSON in that formatter, and it will tell you where you need your commas and what is wrong with your JSON payload. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to swap out this title with a variable. The variables turn green when the node is connected to the other node and the data is valid. Okay. Now, one thing that I noticed is that we've got a little bit of a problem, and that problem is that the format of the blog post is actually in Markdown, not HTML. So we need to fix that really quickly. I'm going to pop in the location ID. I need to find my blog ID really quick. So I'm going to go into my blog settings and find that blog ID. So I'm going to go back to sites, back to blogs. I need an author as well. So I'm going to put in an author. Okay, so I'm getting all the little pieces of information that I need, but I'm going to go into that blog, and it's going to give me the ID of the blog right here. So just save us some steps. So I'm going to put in that blog ID. Perfect. I need to look at what other data it needs. So I need to get all authors, for example. So these are kind of repeats of this previous step to get all categories, where I need to be able to get the author. So I'm just going to copy this and paste this right here. Okay, and I'm going to say get authors from blog. I'm going to come back here, copy this, paste this into the URL field. I've got my location ID. Let's see what else. It's got limit and offset and location ID. So we're all gravy there. I'm going to hit test step. Oh, my authorization failed. What does that mean? Come back in here, go to settings, go to
add authors.
add authors. Okay. So I'm explaining this in kind of the logical steps as opposed to doing it all up front. The reason I'm doing that is because these are also common troubleshooting steps and
that you
errors
need.
you're going to run
Absolutely.
into.
Absolutely,
So,
especially when we're working with APIs and this kind of stuff.
yep. So I need to create blog posts, view blog categories, and view blog authors. I'm going to update this. And trust me, guys, if you're feeling frustrated because you're running into errors, you're not alone. It happens to the best of us. I spent like 12 hours yesterday an error that was one comma in it like 20,000 lines of code. It was one comma. I spent 12 hours finding the comma. Okay. So just keep in mind that frustrating things happen. It's okay. So hit test step. It says authorization failed. Please check your credentials. Let's figure out why. So it's a get request, blog post authors, location ID. I've got my location ID. I need version. I need that. Authorization string. What is missing?
The authorization string is that the authorization string. I don't know where that is in here.
The same one that works for categories. No authorization header found for authentication. So
Well, I think the author the extra thing that I see in there is the authorization string with the bearer.
yeah, that's actually handled by the bearer
Bearer
auth,
token right now.
which it works here. So this is an issue with High Levels API. So again, frustrating things are going to happen. It's okay. So I am going to go in here and I'm going to change this to what's called header auth. So I'm going to change this to header auth and I'm going to use a new credential and I'm going to call this authorization. And I'm going to type in, you won't be able to see what's in here. I'm going to show you though, it looks like this, space. And then you're going to paste your API key in here. Now, I'm not going to show you what that API key looks like. So I'm going to pause my screen share. And I'm going to really quickly put in my API key. And I'm going to save this. And I'm going to call this high level blog poster or N8N blog poster Olibot.ai. Resume screen share. All right, so I've got that header auth saved. It should work now. We hit test step and it works. So this is an issue with High Levels API. High Level, if you're watching this, this is what I was talking about with inconsistencies in your API. So I am going to now grab this author ID right here. I'm going to go back into my send blog post to High Level, and I'm going to paste in the author ID right here. I'm going to add in some tags. I'm going to call this N8N tutorial, and I'm going to say High Level. All right, so I've added some tags. I've got my author ID. I'm going to say N8N tutorial for beginners. You don't, to my knowledge, need the canonical link. So I'm going to check in here for required stuff. Canonical is not required, so I can leave that out. I am going to, you need an image URL and you need a description and you need alt text. So the next thing I'm going to do is go back into N8N. I'm going to remove canonical link. I'm going to say published at today's date. And I'm going to publish it at midnight last night, just so we can see it. You can also use the character or the merge variable $now, which will publish the blog immediately. The next thing I'm going to do is I've got some alt text I need. How to set up NAN for beginners.
Now, mind you, for the sake of time, because I know this is why Mario's doing this, we would go back and we would change the instructions for the JSON and the Markdown earlier on and help provide as much as this is possible for us uh, as it would come in. But again, because we're running out of time, we're at the hour mark now. That's the reason why we're doing this, so everybody's understanding.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is grab that description, drag that right here. I need to find an image URL. How do I find an image URL? I can go into my media library really quick, media storage. I can go into, we will use a just an Alibot logo. So I'm just going to copy this link, put this link in here. And again, you can have ChatGPT generate the image for you. There's all kinds of things you can do that will make this easier. Now, it's still not ready to post because the one thing we haven't done is create raw HTML. How do we do that? We come in here. We type in Markdown. We say Markdown to HTML. We're going to grab that body, put that body right there, Markdown to HTML, put that in the key field HTML, hit test step. All right, that is going to output at the very bottom the HTML. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to come in here, go into send blog, and we need to make sure that we swap out this right here. And we're going to swap this out for the body, which is this HTML right there. We're going to put in that body. That's what that HTML looks like. The one thing we need to do is we need to escape those characters. I'm going to show you what happens if you don't. We're going to hit test step. Parameter needs to be valid JSON. How do we do that? We come in here to that HTML, put a little dot behind it, and escape doesn't work. So we're going to do replace all. We're going to put in quotation marks, 3 of them. And we're going to put in a backtick. And we're going to put in a comma. And we're going to put in quotation marks, 3 of them, put in a backtick. All right, what's going on? So it says replace all. Let's take a look. Pattern and replacement. So do I need a... Nope. One of you is not like the other. There we go.
Yeah,
So
it was
next
like
thing,
4.
yep. There we go. 1/ here, 3 slashes here. Test step, still not valid. What's going on? Let's take a look here. So put the slashes in the right place. So what other aspect of my JSON needs to be replaced? Add another replace all. Do quotation marks again, //n. Replace this with this. So that should make it 1 line. There we go. /n, //n. And now that should make it the correct format. Authorization failed. Please check your credentials. So I'm going to switch this to header auth, select my credential, send it again. Status must be a valid enum. So again, high levels documentation was wrong. It looks like status.
Maybe up on top. Oh no.
Status is not part of the API call. There we go.
It says status must be a string.
Which is odd because status isn't included in. Oh, it is right here. Status. So let's try this. I think that high levels documentation, it needs to say active in all capital letters.
Oh, it's right there. Status. You see it? Draft, published, scheduled archive.
So it's published, not active. Got it. Good catch, Nuno. All right.
Yay.
Success. So now we go back here, go into sites, go into blogs. Come on. Hello.
Guys, just so you understand, this is so super advanced. The fact that nobody's showing you this stuff. Like nobody. Look through this, scour through the internet. Nobody's showing you this craziness. And as you can see, here we go. Wow. And it's even formatted in the way a blog should be. Ladies and gentlemen, this is amazing. Like literally, you can go back in here and you can do this. You can automate this. There's different ways to blow this out. And again, this is what Vibe Fridays are going to be. We're completely vibing this out. Mary did a great job. And again, by far one of the most leading experts in the high-level API. He knows it intimately. And we're totally not kidding. Nobody is showing this stuff. But again, great job. Hope you guys enjoyed the first Vibe Friday. And we'll see you on the next one. All right. Thank you, everybody.